Hello and welcome to Move the Line Prop Drop Show presented by Thrive Fantasy. I'm Ryan Noonan, and we'll be here every week in this space talking about the best way, the most profitable way, maybe not so much in week one, to bet on NFL football, and that's player props. Live here 2 p.m. Eastern every Friday, giving our favorite player props and taking your questions. So if you are hanging out with us now on YouTube, subscribe so you don't miss a show, and jump in the chat. Let us know your favorite prop of the week. Anything you're on the fence about, feel free to ask us about anything like that. We will try to get to it at the end of the show. Joining me, as always, on time this week and in his house, Connor Allen. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, it feels good to be back. You know, Vegas is only fun for a limited time there, and I was running on fumes by the time this show came around last week. So excited to be back, and I went 3-1 last week on the show. You know, I got lucky there, and I'm feeling pretty good heading into week 2.
Better than you did on our Thursday show, which is good, and better than
Just
I know I did last week. So last week was rough for me. I know no one wants to hear us bitch and moan about being on the wrong side of variance and running poorly. We didn't have the best of luck last week anyway. The Travis Etienne one was incredible. Like, if people missed Connor's tweet, like he was over. He had cleared by like 6 yards, took a helmet on the ball, got classified as a fumble or lost yardage. The ball went flying out of bounds and lost. Never had another reception, dropped the reception inside the 5 that could have gone over, and that prop lost. So tough scene for us, but no one, like I said, wants to hear us bemoan about tough beats. Again, joining us as always in the spot is the man behind the Mayo Media Network and the Pat Mayo Experience, of course, none other than the man himself, Pat Mayo. How we doing, bud?
I'm already up money for the week. Can't lose on props because I played the reverse curse Mike Williams over everything, and it cashed at 9-1.
Can't beat that. Feinberg didn't get his win, but maybe got his cover. He came on and joined us on the Thursday show last night, and we talked about taking the 4.5 out there. So I know that's not going to help him with where he's at, but hopefully slept a little bit better with maybe some money in his pocket. Though I think he did tell us that he thought it was either money line or Chiefs. So maybe he didn't. So I'm not sure. I haven't checked in with him today, but we'll see how that went. But smart man taking the Mike Williams over. So that was not something that we're going to see all season long with that fluky kind of week 1 stuff there. So, Pat, real quick, remind the YouTube viewers what they need to do to the like button.
They need to smash that like button and gently caress the sub button to make sure that it sticks for you, because that's what you need to do for 4for4 football.
Reminders we talked about there briefly. 2 episodes of Move the Line each week, both available here on YouTube, available in podcast form wherever you consume podcasts. In addition to this, the Prop Drop Show, we have a game preview show. Connor, John Daigle, and myself live 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday nights leading into the Thursday night football game. So again, subscribe so you don't miss that as well. 9 bets in there for week 2 for you to take action on. I think we have some pretty good leans this week. Feel good about week 2. So before we get started, I want to tell listeners about our friends again over at Thrive Fantasy. And there's a great opportunity again in week 2 to make money. They chopped the contest size down basically in half, but they are still about 12% as we stand right now, filling the week 2 contest. So good on them for adjusting, but everyone seems to be slow to act and get in over on Thrive. So you want to definitely check that out. Again, if you're not familiar with Thrive, pretty straightforward. It's a prop game, daily fantasy props. You're basically choosing 10 of the 20 that they have available to build your lineup. Each prop has a fantasy value, both to the over and under that's associated based on how likely it is to hit the prop, rack up the points, and you can win. There is a $25 GPP up at the top when you enter their promo code prop drop. You're going to get a instant 100% first deposit match up to $250. It's great. So $250, you sign up instantly, you got $500 in your account, and you can bang that bad boy and help them fill it. Again, I didn't do very well last week, but just by entering a bunch of times, I won money. So I didn't have anything that was really in the mix, but it was a profitable week just because the overlay was massive. They filled about 60% of that contest. So let's help them get a little bit closer. Also, if you entered last week and you beat Connor and I, which Connor basically brought up the rear, you probably beat him. So give us a screenshot, DM it at 4for4 bets on Twitter at 4for4 bets. Give us a screenshot, let us know you're in that contest, and you'll get a entry over into the week 2 contest. We'll keep this going, and hopefully we can fill it up and get a little bit closer. Again, the overlay is going to be a thing again this week, so check it out. All right, week 2, live lines, everything available for you to bet on right now. No one here to give stale lines. Our goal is to do the best that we can to get you the same line, same price as we are, or as close to it. Again, hop in the chat. Let us know anything that you want to get to at the end of the show. Connor, start us off week 2.
All right, let's get going here. Going back to my favorite bet from last week, Mike Gesicki unders again. I'm surprised we're even seeing a line. Mike Gesicki under 20.5 receiving yards available right now on PointsBet. Also available at DraftKings and FanDuel around 16.5. He saw one target last week, which he caught for 1 yard. He played on 42% of the snaps. And the Dolphins led the league in pass rate over expectation last week. So they were passing him more than expectation, and he still only saw one target. He only ran 16 routes, was out targeted by Durham Smith 2-1. So if you're looking at 20 yards, that means he needs like probably 3 short catches, maybe 2 intermediate, like 10-yard catches, or 1 really long one. I don't really even think he sees more than 1 to 2 targets. So if you're looking at this one, I like the under here a lot. You can also get plus money on under 1.5 receptions. I think that's worth a sprinkle too, maybe a half unit as well there, because again, there's a good chance that he sees 2 or fewer targets. So all he has to do is only catch 1 of them. And I like the under there as well.
Yeah, I almost lean under on the receptions versus the yardage, just because, he has shown, and that's kind of why there's been any optimism on him since he's been in the league, is some, I guess, relative to his peers, big playability. But yeah, I mean, you're barely on the field like that, and barely getting targeted, 6% target share, not very great. Pat, any thoughts on Gesicki, who has been a prominent member of the show every week so far?
Yeah, I would actually take the under on the yardage versus the 1.5 receptions. You can grease your way into 2 catches pretty easily, even at a 6% market share of the targets if teams are passing that much. Although they might not have the personnel to do it, that just trying to limit Waddle, limit Hill, and make Tua pass anywhere else is going to be a pretty good strategy for the Ravens. Whether they can execute that or not, I don't know. But, getting to 20 yards for Mike Gesicki seems a lot more implausible than him getting to 2 catches this week.
Yeah, that's fair. I can go either way. I'm in on the shorting the Dolphins passing game this week, even though there's just a crap ton of injuries in the secondary for the Ravens. So no problem with that. Pat, first one.
First one for me. I want to gauge your temperature on the San Francisco backfield for a second. No Elijah Mitchell. So it's like, oh, wow, Jeff Wilson is going to do all this damage. It's like, is he going to do all that damage? So I'm looking at unders for Jeff Wilson, because one of the main reasons that we saw more Debo being used after Elijah Mitchell missed the game, it was like a monsoon, so I don't know how accurate any of that offense is going to look for the 49ers. But now you have Torian David Price active for this game, and some other absolute jabroni. What's his name? Jordan Mason.
Yeah,
is expected to be at. I mean, if Jordan Mason somehow led this team in carries in the running backfield, then I wouldn't be super stunned with how it's going with Kyle Shanahan. So you have 2 options. You have rushing attempts, 13.5 over under for Jeff Wilson. I like the under, but I might actually prefer the 64.5 under on combined rushing and receiving yards for Jeff Wilson. I don't think he's going to do much in the passing game anyway. Not that he's expected to do a ton, but it makes that a little bit higher just in case he starts doing well on the ground and he does get to that over in rushing attempts. I just feel like unders is a very safe spot for Jeff Wilson this week. We've seen him handle the load periodically for the 49ers, but most of the time when you see these spots with a still mixed, super encouraging. But Damian Williams was getting all the carries until he got hurt. Now, yes, he's not playing this week, so you'd think, oh yeah, tons of Cordero. Well, they had nothing to adjust to last week. They only had like 2 running backs active. Of course, he had to get all of the carries. That's not going to be the case this week, and I feel like that's also not going to be the case for the 49ers. So under 64.5 rushing plus receiving yards for Jeff Wilson for me.
Connor, what are your thoughts on that?
I keep going back and forth on this because his averages, when he does get the roll, are pretty high. But it's such a hot hand approach. Like, he has 2 drives. Like, he has 1 to 2 drives. If he impresses, he'll probably be the majority carrier the whole game. If he sucks, he'll be on the bench. It'll be Jordan Mason will have his chance. And if he impresses, it'll be his time. Or Tyrion Davis Price if he's active. They're going to try all of them. They're going to all give him a chance. And whoever looks the best after those first, 2, 3, 4 drives, that's going to be their guy kind of going forward. So I think that the floor is super low. So to Pat's point there, I think that the under is probably the right look, but it's tough for me to take just because we have seen him have some success in the past.
I agree that it's probably under or nothing based off of how Pat laid it out, because I do think he's a 0 in the passing game for the most part. So I think that's probably pretty limited, but we know we've seen it, Shanahanigans and the stuff, like just the range of outcomes here are pretty vast. And there's been enough around both at different times, whether it's Tyrion Davis Price or Jordan Mason, around like positive camp pub. So that's probably for a reason. And they continue to draft these guys knowing that they have Jeff Wilson on the roster because they kind of know that Jeff Wilson is really just a guy. So do you just lean on Jeff Wilson as if he is your alpha in these scenarios? I think they probably don't. So since there is an unknown here, I do think it's probably under or nothing. Not a play for me, but I get why you would go there because 64.5 is a pretty large threshold, knowing that he's not necessarily going to airball the passing game, but he's, maybe a threat for 1.5, in receptions there. So I would lean there with Pat, but not a play for me. I get it though. All right, first for me, Cooper Kupp. I get it. I know that no one wants to chase these like insane, plus 85, plus arbitrary points, but like I get no one wants to chase overs that are that high. No problem. If you look, and we have a tool on the site that allows you to see how frequent a guy goes over a prop. This has moved. I took Cooper Kupp over 93.5 receiving yards. It is up to 94.5. At 94.5 in the last year plus, including the playoffs, he has an 82% hit rate. At the number that I got it at, just a yard lower, he has a 91% hit rate. If you eliminate the Arizona Cardinals for some reason, who had in the past slowed him down, he's done it in all but one game. So I know that it feels crazy. And I know you go into this game and you're like, well, they have to stop Cooper Kupp, right? They have to find a way to do so. But I think that kind of takes away from what we've seen Sean McVay do from a coaching and scheming standpoint. And you look, according to PFF last week, 9 of his 15 targets, he had 38% of them anyway, came against the linebacker or safety in primary coverage. You would think, how in the world can you end up with a linebacker or safety in coverage on Cooper Kupp? But it happens. It happens all the time. So you can't go into that game thinking the Bills weren't ready for Cooper Kupp to get a 38% target share. No, it's just schematically, a lot of teams play zone mostly, and there's ways that they move him around and put him in different spots. So that happens. And, I know that there's going to be a lot of steam in the squeaky wheel narrative around Allen Robinson because he was shut down last week. They can all eat. I think Allen Robinson gets on the board this week a little bit better, but that comes probably from like Ben Swartak and Tyler Higbee than it does from Cooper Kupp. So give me Kupp against this terrible Atlanta team who I think is going to struggle to get pressure. I know it's a large number, but over on Kupp, probably anywhere under 100 yards, which I know is tough to stomach, but I'm there.
Looking at it too, like you have Hayward and AJ Terrell on the outside. Terrell, one of the best corners in football, probably not going to be chasing Cooper Kupp into the slot too often.
No, and that's it, right? That's really the only redeeming quality that you can even have, and most people can only name AJ Terrell, and you're looking to like list Falcons starting defenders. It's a joke, Connor.
Yeah, no, and like I want to bet on an Allen Robinson bounce back, but I don't think this is the week. And with him probably potentially running the same routes that we saw last week, which is like clear out routes, opening the middle of the field up for a guy like Cooper Kupp. It's tough to really fade that, but at the same time, Noonan, you love these high overs. Like this is like your jam. This is the high. The wide receivers who are in a good spot, just smashing their overs like pretty much every week. I mean, you already hit Devontae Adams as well. I'm not sure if I ruined another play here in the notes, but that moved already 10 yards from the opener. So, keep doing your thing, man. I'm not going to hate on it. It's not for me, but it's it works for you.
Yeah. Devontae Adams not on the card this week because he did move 10 yards versus when it was post for our subscribers. But also, like I think with the way that the game's played nowadays, there's nothing more predictable, I think, week in and week out than elite wide receiver performance. And again, I know there are so many ways that a high number like this can go wrong. A little hammy pull, and all of a sudden he's out for the game. And, maybe had a good first half and he fell short. But like it happens every week. You get there with Cooper Kupp and shit, it's halftime. He's got 80 yards. Like he's almost already there. It happens all the time. So yeah, it is. I would love to get there mentally. I think we spend so much time, at least me, like, right? I'm thinking of DFS lineups and I'm thinking about building these matchups, and some of these things happen, and I'm thinking about good performances, right? Who's going to excel? And it's very easy to get there and telling a story about like, okay, I expect Devontae Adams to crush the Cardinals secondary. I think there's no way that the Rams can get close to their 31-point team total bounce back after a really bad week one if Cooper Kupp is not heavily involved. So, yeah, it's how I'm there. I know you go to shitty quarterbacks and how are they going to fall flat on their face, and it works for you. I get caught in the middle, and that's my problem. So I need to stay in my lane and look for alphas only. And then we'll, tag team and give everyone variety. It's the spice of life here on the show. So you are actually in my lane here for this next one. I tailed it because this is an alpha who is priced like maybe a marginal wide receiver.
Yeah. So my next one here is Cortland Sutton. I like the over at 54.5 receiving yards. It's pretty widely available. DK, MGM. He saw 7 targets last week, led the team in air yards with 121, which was 44% of the team's total air yards. He went over 53.5 receiving yards last week in week one, despite the Broncos offense looking pretty awful for the most part of the game. He also ran a route on 100% of pass plays. Looking at just a guy running, a route on 100% of Russell Wilson's, pass plays and, getting those deep intermediate targets. Like there's so many ways that this can go right. Like it really would take a super inefficient game for it to go wrong, and he gets to match up against a team who doesn't necessarily have a good secondary. It doesn't have someone who I think can stop him. So, I like the over here 54.5 receiving yards. We have 72 yards projected for Sutton. And I think that that's a little bit bullish and more bullish than the rest of the industry, but I still think that, 60s is very, very reasonable for kind of a bounce back game for this Broncos offense here.
You got to lean there, Pat, or where are you at? Sorry.
I didn't even think their passing game looked all that bad last week. It's just the fact they kept checking down for reasons, I suppose. But Sutton was open the entire game. Wilson just couldn't hit him in stride when he needed to, and he still got to his over. That was one of my favorite Monday night props to play, was the Sutton overs on everything. I'm for that, but I was going to go to Big Albert O. You know who loves Big Albert O this week? Projection systems. Over 30.5 receiving yards is the strongest play my numbers have spit out. Now, maybe my numbers are completely wrong, and that's what's going on here, but just with the pass rate that we saw, now they were losing for a lot of that game. Maybe that switches up, but I think he can clear this in the first half. We kind of got a little bit of a gift, and the books didn't react, that they started using other tight ends at the very beginning of the game. But it was very clear that Albert O was the tight end that you actually did want on that team. So I'm looking at it right now. My numbers have him spit out at 58.5 yards as his median projection. Like I said, I may have over projected him, but 30.5 is almost double, or is almost half of what the projection comes out as. So I can't not play that.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, it's 77% of the routes run, and there are a lot of questions coming into the season about what that was going to look like. So no problem there. I mean, he was almost using the slot more so than even as like an inline tight end. So yeah, no problem on the Alberto. It's aggressive. Your median projection feels not like a median projection, but it doesn't mean that you can't still get there. You have room baked in, right? So you have to trust some of that a little bit in the season. So I'm there.
And like, it's nothing crazy. Like with the way that offense was so concentrated, like you had Andrew Beck have those 2 catches. Like how many targets do you think that Andrew Beck gets this week? 1?
Yeah. How many routes does he even run?
Yeah. So like you said, 77% of the routes run. Like I have him projected as a 19% target share right now. Maybe that's a bit too aggressive, but let's say we do just change it up just a little bit. We'll drop him down to a 15% projection in terms of the target share. And we'll run it again and see what ends up happening. That's a significant decrease, almost half of the target share. I bet you he still comes in over that number of 30.5, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like for him, like he's a big play tight end as well. Like that could just be 1 catch for him, which is kind of the crazy way to think about it with his athleticism. So we shrink it down to 11%. Where are you at now? He's not very high on the list now. Albert. And all of a sudden he is now coming in with the 11% target share. He is now coming in at 25 receiving yards, which would be the under, but I still think that he comes in way ahead of that.
Yeah, we have him at 40 receiving yards projected for, and I think we are probably actually even a little light. And that's on, I think it's about 3.5 catches, maybe 4 catches. So
there we are.
I like it. All right, next for me. Nick Chubb, over 16.5 rushing attempts. This is BetMGM at -110. There were a lot of instances last season where the Browns were 6-point favorites or more, right? It's kind of a crappy year, and obviously all the concerns and injuries that they had, especially on the offensive side with Baker and stuff. But I found 3, and in those spots, you had game into the Bears. The Bears, they were 9-point favorites at home against Chicago. Nick Chubb ran for 22 attempts. A couple weeks later, they were home, and it was against the Raiders, 23 attempts. Another spot against I lost it, wasn't the Texans, but he had 23 attempts. So every time that they've been 6-point favorites or more in the last calendar year, Chubb has cleared 22 carries. Now we're in a spot against a Jets team that Connor's about to bang a Jets under here in the show. We're on the Jets team total under. We think that the Browns are going to really try to slow and control this game down. I know Kareem Hunt was involved last week, but still, even in the spot last week, they got up a little bit in that game, and Nick Chubb had 22 carries. So 16.5 at -110 feels like a really nice lean on Chubb when I think he's going to be a massive part of this game plan. So I like that one quite a bit.
Yeah, I would say my only concern would be that they end up using Hunt a little bit more, or maybe for some reason, Dearness Johnson is active this week, even though he's inactive last week. But yeah, it's when I keep picturing this game, I just keep thinking about how we know what the Browns are going to do. They're going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to run the ball successfully without putting Brissett in the passing game at too much risk. And I think that they're going to be able to, because the Jets offense looked so bad last week. Which I'll get into a little bit here. But yeah, I think that the over is probably the right play, especially given how we expect the game state to go. Now, if that flips for some reason, it's a little bit of jeopardy, but I think we're still probably at the right line, even if it's, like a neutral game script for them.
Yeah. I mean, if it flips, there's scenarios where it flips and it's dead, right? But like, again, even with Kareem Hunt's usage last week, which was, I think, a little higher than everyone expected, again, they got up. The charge from the Panthers side was late in that fourth quarter. They had a double-digit lead early in that game and kind of controlled the ball. And again, I just can't see a scenario where the Jets are in this game. And again, I know we're talking about a Jacoby Brissett-led team, and Pat's giving me the side eye as if you want to tell me that like the Jets are going to be real players in this one to squash this one. But I do not see a scenario where the Jets are really super competitive at any point with Joe Flacco under center.
This is a close game. This has close game written all over it. Like, I mean, I wouldn't even touch a prop. I just bet the Jets in the spread. That would be the move for me. It's one of my favorite bets of the week. But the Jets run D, I mean, the Jets D did a pretty good job on Lamar and the Ravens last week. The Browns are going to be better than that? No chance. The Jets run defense better than anything they have as any unit as a part of the team. So yeah, I think that's the prop I like the most is Nick Chubb getting to his over rushing attempts. I definitely wouldn't take the yardage attempts because the Browns are not scared to be like, hey, here's 22 touches for 70 yards and they can win by 3, something like that. But I don't expect this to be any sort of blowout in the Browns' favor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect them to blow it out. I just have a hard time envisioning. I think the game under is great because we're on the Jets under. But yeah, I just don't think that they're really a competitive football team.
They're not, but
Flacco
neither are the Browns technically, unless they have to start trying to get a boat race where they can find, like, the Carolina run defense, not great. So you can run on them. You can pass all over them with your running backs. Very good routes for Jacoby Brissett. It's kind of the opposite with the Jets. Like, you want to go deep opposite Sauce Gardner. That's how you're going to kill them. That's how the Ravens killed them last week.
Yeah. The Jets used to, the years past, have had, that's probably the best unit was the defensive line, and they were good against the runner, solid comparatively to the rest of the team. They were 24th in rush EPA per play last year. And then last week we had some offensive line issues on Baltimore, which I know we were concerned about. I think this offensive line healthy in Cleveland is significantly better than what Baltimore rolled out last week. So yeah, even though they did struggle, and again, Mike Davis and Kenyon Drake, a little bit different than a really solid, healthy Browns front and Kareem Hunt. So I get the points there.
Then if you're so confident, quit being a coward. Make a same game parlay. Browns to cover the spread. Nick Chubb over yards. Nick Chubb over rushing attempts. Boom.
Brother, I'm this same game parlays. This is I can't talk about on the show because Connor will yell at me all the time. But no. I live for that stuff.
No, I'm a changed man, dude. I'm a changed man. I'm very pro same game parlays now, especially when they're correlated.
Yeah,
I like
they
that.
have to be correlated.
Oh yeah, no, we'll hammer Jets team under 17. We'll hammer Flacco under, which I don't want to steal from Connor, and then we'll hammer Nick Chubb. We'll throw anytime touchdown in there too, which is just real degen shit that I typically don't dabble in. But yeah, I'm fine.
Oh man. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's like a 5-leg parlay. That'll pay a pretty good amount here. But yeah, that rolls into my next pick here. We can add this to the same game parlay. Joe Flacco, I took under 226.5 passing yards And I think that's pretty widely available, above 220 still at this point. He had 59 passing attempts last week. The coaching staff said, they looked at the stat sheet where they were disgusted, by what they saw. And he had just massive, massive play volume because, as we mentioned, the Ravens were not able to, get going at all. Like, they were just not able to sustain drives. They just were able to capitalize on big plays, but we're not able to sustain drives at all. So now we're looking at Joe Flacco playing against Myles Garrett, the Browns secondary. I think that they're in a lot of trouble here with the Browns, being able to probably sustain play volume and kind of be able to take their out of the ball, control the game, and just see like way, way fewer pass attempts. So I expect the Jets to not only lean on the run early, but then, probably the Browns deflate the ball. So he won't have many passing attempts. Plus he'll probably be inefficient against what I think is a pretty solid Browns defense. At least the pass rush is good, and the secondary should be a solid as well. Our projection has him at 213 passing yards. So I think that he could actually go under 200 passing yards here, to be honest. And it would not surprise me at all.
Whew, we got big discrepancies there. I got him throwing the ball 36 times for 250 yards.
Ooh. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. If they go pass heavy, he can certainly get there again. If he throws the ball like 35, 40 times. But I don't know let's see what our attempts are at right now.
I just look at maybe they completely blow it up because week one of a year is not necessarily going to resemble week two and how a team plays. I do think this team is incompetent enough as they say, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that, and they just do exactly what they did last week. I think that could be very much on the table. It was like Lovie Smith being, Damian Pierce really should have got the ball more. It's like, well, why didn't you give him the ball more?
You're in charge.
Like, if that doesn't happen again in week two, it's like, oh yeah, he's an idiot. Like, he doesn't know what he wants to do. So that's not going to be super shocking. I just look at the pace stats from week one. The Jets in the second half, once they were actually down, they started running a play every 20 seconds. That was the fastest of any team in the second half overall in a neutral situation, which there weren't a ton of neutral situation. They were the 8th fastest team to snap the ball. So they're just running an incredible amount of plays right now.
Yeah, I think that the thought, too, is a little different because we talked about how in this instance, and I think this is actually why the Chubb play correlates so well here, is because I think that the Browns are able to, like Connor said, slow the game down, deflate everything a little bit by controlling in a way that was very different, where Lamar was pretty pass happy, surprisingly, last week. So I think they probably either both hit or they don't, to be honest, because if Nick Chubb can't maintain first downs and move the chains here for them, then it turns the ball back to the Jets, and they're able to kind of up the volume and maybe replicate some of the stuff from a volume and pace standpoint, like Pat's talking about last week. So yeah, it's a good point. You probably want them both. So it probably is best to same game parlay them for you out there. So maybe stay away from the Chubb touchdown. It's not necessarily there, but yeah, they correlate for sure. Pat, number 3 for you.
Next one for me, and this is one is going to be very projection heavy once again. You can find it right now at DraftKings Sportsbook, 32.5 over Cooper Rush passing attempts. Now, this goes against everything in my fiber of what I actually think is going to happen in this game. And I have to look at, it's funny, when I punch in my projections and it spits me out the numbers, like, well, that's not how I think this game is going to go. Although that's exactly what I told the system, how I think the game is going to go. And you just get really surprised by a lot of these numbers. Big home dog. I actually think this game is closer. I would take Dallas against the spread. And optimally, how Dallas is going to run this game is try to run as much as possible, squeeze the air out of the ball, keep the clock running, run at a very snail's pace. But even when I punch that in, the projections love these passing attempts. I have him only behind Tom Brady as attempting the most passes in the league this week, and doesn't seem like anyone's going to come in and take his job anytime soon. So 32.5 is the number. I haven't projected at 38 passing attempts. That is a wide margin for passing attempts. My Jacoby Brissett one should have hit last week, but all of a sudden Carolina decides not to ice the clock. They're like 2nd and 1. All they need is 1 yard. They're going to kick a field goal, win the game. All of a sudden Brissett doesn't have to go into a 2-minute drill and absolutely screw me on that number. That happens. This week, I'm just going to blindly take this over. It just seems way too low.
He's middle of the pack for us in terms of where he's at in the week, but we're at 34. So we're leaning a little bit over there too. It's an interesting look. Any thoughts on that one, Connor?
No, I think the Pats right on like projected game day when I think about that game. They're going to want to get the ball to Zeke. He didn't get the ball enough. We saw Mike McCarthy come out and say that Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, needs to be smarter. Essentially, what he's saying is to get the ball to Zeke more, run the ball more, it seems like. But I mean, Zeke looked good, so I think that they could ride with him for a little bit, but it's just a matter of like when the game gets out of control, like they're going to have to throw at some point. And I do think that even then, like 32.5 attempts is really light, even in like kind of a neutral or somewhat positive game script for them if somehow things go right. But if things go wrong, I mean, he'll fly over this number.
Yeah, we were kind of fist pumping, right? Like 10 minutes into that game on Sunday night, Connor. Like we had the Zeke over. They were like feeding him in the first drive. He's actually looking pretty good, and then things go sideways real quick, and that can happen from time to time. But
I mean, I know it could be a different game plan this week, but just in neutral, just overall seconds per play, Dallas was the second fastest team in football, only behind Detroit in that circumstance. And they actually upped it. I mean, they weren't Jacksonville and the Jets played from behind very quickly, as you should when you play from behind. But Dallas was way up there as well. There was no spot, whether they were up, whether it was first half, second half, down, neutral. They were just running plays very quickly for no reason.
And that stayed consistent actually with the last few years of Kellen Moore. They've ranked like second and top 3 in pace in neutral game script for the last 3 years consecutively, which is pretty awesome.
I'd love to get Pat's thoughts on this one because it seems to be in line with some of the things that he is leaning on so far since we've been doing this show. Is I'm in on Marcus Mariota over 30.5 attempts in this spot. We have him about 34. He went over last week pretty comfortably in a spot where they led a lot. This is available on BetMGM at -105. I think they're going to maybe have a little bit more trouble against the Rams this week. The Rams probably bouncing back again, home 10-point dogs. So again, you would think that we see a little bit more pass happy approach, even though he topped it last week. Even though we saw more Cordero pass and we saw more Mariota on the ground. Like that was one I thought was going to be on the show for me this week. Was Mariota rushing yards over. He had a massive number. It's like 35.5 now. But a great rushing week, 12 attempts, 72 yards last week, 22% design runs, which is like triple his career high for a season when he was in Tennessee. So again, I don't want to blow up one game, but again, lots of bootleg action, lots of different things that we saw from them last week that maybe had him with a one read and run. So I don't hate that, but interested to see what Pat's like on the Mariota over 30.5 attempts.
I have him right there. I have him at 30.9 passing attempts. And maybe it's just my biased opinion that I think that Atlanta could be a playoff team this year, is that I think this game is way closer than that spread indicates. I think that the Rams might be in real trouble this year if they cannot block. And maybe it's the Bills pass rush. Maybe it's just so amazing that they're going to be in the backfield every time. But New Orleans is supposed to have one of the best offensive lines in football. And you know who they couldn't block? The Atlanta Falcons. And they weren't blitzing. They were just rushing for the entire time. So if that line ends up as weak as it looked on the opening Thursday, now they've had 10 days to overcome it. Maybe Atlanta played a little bit over their heads. But because you have those two lockdown corners on the outside, you do have to extend the play a little bit more and wait for, I mean, in this case, it's going to be Cooper Kupp available over the middle of the field. That's good. But I could just see some sacks in this spot, the clock running a lot in this spot, and the game not getting out of hand. And you kind of mentioned it, that a lot of these weird bootlegs, 3 guys in the backfield, it does seem like they kind of want to run a weird college offense that we might not see Mariota start lighting it up in the passing game unless they fall down by 14-10 really early. And I don't think that happens.
I'll tell you what, that's definitely something that's on my list to watch for, to see if there was any week one noise or if that's like going to be something that's sticky, because the Falcons didn't really add anyone as far as like their pass rush. They needed to add someone last year because last year they had a 13.8 pressure rate. It was by far the worst in the league. It's the worst in the league since 2014. And then they come out last week and get a crap ton of pressure on Jameis. It was very weird. And then again, like no one can run on the Saints historically. They're like these barely anyone that's run over 100 yards the last handful of years. Ran back the worst offensive line in the league with the same 5 dudes and ran down their throat. So like, again, I definitely want to see what's going on with both the Falcons and the Saints, but like I'm nervous for the Rams if they can't protect again. And then maybe I need to maybe not be on the playoff bandwagon with you, but maybe there's something there with the Falcons that I'm not currently accounting for.
I think that Arthur Smith has them working in unconventional ways, which is going to pay dividends early, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because teams just aren't prepared for what they're trying to do. Like you said, the Mariota rushing yards, that's not something that we ever saw before in the way that he was utilized, but he was running bootlegs. He was running option plays. Like sometimes just, it's almost like in a game of blackjack where if you play by the percentage card and you make the right decision every time, you know what you're going to do? Lose, because the house has the advantage. So you need to do something at some point, throw a little bit of sand into the microchip, try to blow it up a little bit. And it feels like that's what they're doing on offense, at least so far this year. And there could be something like there's two things working in unison here with the Falcons, especially pass rush. You mentioned that their pressure rate, they had the lowest adjusted sack rate in the league by over 2%. Like, it wasn't even close. So natural regression would state that they had to be better because they're an NFL team than they were last year. So you just have that boosting them up. And, this offensive line, this defensive front, it was super young a year ago. Maybe these guys are just better in year two.
Yeah, it can happen. I want to be open to that too, right? Is like moving off of our priors, even though there wasn't necessarily a massive talent influx. Typically, that's going to be there. There's no schematic changes either. So yeah, I definitely want to see what's going on with, the Rams and the Falcons in this instance, and the Saints as well. Like, if they were going to be a team that can't protect and you can run all over, like, that's not necessarily the team that I thought was going to the playoffs. And, the Rams definitely are in danger to repeat in the West if they can't protect. And it looked like through 1 week that they had no shot at protecting Matthew Stafford. So, all right, what's next here? It looks like it is going to be Connor, for your last one, buddy. Wrap us up.
Yep. Last one here. So it looks like this is getting a little out of hand with the juice. I don't know if someone played this like while we're on show here before. In addition, because this was available as of like a couple minutes before, but Lamar Jackson over 29.5 pass attempts. It still looks like it's minus 130 at some places, but I like this over here. I think, prior to the season, we expected the Ravens to go back to their run heavy approach that we've seen before the 2021 season. But, this week one, they ranked 6th in pass rate over expectation. And then going back to last year where they kind of had that pass heavy approach, he's gone over this number in 10 of 12 games that he's finished, including a 43 attempt outing against the same Miami unit with the same defensive coordinator. So, I think that with Miami bringing the blitz here, and the Ravens banged up a little bit on the offensive line here, still with Juwan James out, Ronnie Stanley practiced today, but I think that, I doubt he'll be 100% by game time. J.K. Dobbins, again, practiced in full Wednesday, Thursday, but coming back from a multi-ligament injury, held out week one. So I don't really expect their run game to be firing in all cylinders here. And kind of what we've seen for the past year and a half or so, it seems like they're probably going to continue to be pass heavy. So I think at 29.5, this is a pretty good look here on the over.
I like it. It was one of the ones I was eyeing down as well.
Awesome. Let's ride. I don't know about 30. What do you think? What would you play it up to? Like 30.5 was probably my limit here, but because it's starting to get a little bit juiced in some spots.
Yeah. How juiced did you say that it was?
So I'm using our prop finder. I played it at minus 110 here, like literally right before the show, but now it's at minus 130. I'd probably still play it, but we're looking at 30.5, minus 110, or minus 120, depending on the shop. But I think 30.5 is still fine at minus 110.
Yeah, 30.5 at minus 110. I actually like. My numbers support that. If it starts getting up to minus 120, minus 125, it's a complete off for me.
Yeah. Good look. Yeah, I think that we hit that and Connor hit it, and then I think multiple people subbing hit it as well. So it's probably starting to get some action there. Pat, number 4 for you, bud.
It's going to be an anytime touchdown. I played it. I think I can't even remember what I put in last week, but this is one that I hit heavily across all prop shops when it came down to it. And I'm going back to the well again. Antonio Gibson, anytime touchdown, minus 110. What can't Detroit do? Lots is the answer. Stop the run is primary on that list. And they run a ton of plays as well, which is kind of crazy to think about. They run at such a fast pace that there's going to be more opportunity for Antonio Gibson. I would actually try to go, let me rig up the same game parlay here for Antonio Gibson. I mean, I don't know if I buy exactly what was going on with him in terms of the passing game, if that's ever going to continue to come to fruition ever again, the most routes he's ever run in a game. Not going to bank on that outlier situation. And I don't think that Wentz throws for 4 touchdowns again, but this is going to be, it's projected as a close game. It is, what is it? It's minus 1.5 now. Why won't it let me click on the game? This is stupid. There we go. Thank you, DraftKings Sportsbook, for letting me click on this game. So you can go TD scores, anytime touchdown. Oh, they juice it up in the same game parlay. How about that? It's minus 120 in the same game parlay. It's minus 110 overall. Either way, Antonio Gibson, anytime touchdown. And then we can get to some of these rushing props for him as well. Where are we at here on the rushing props? Those are passing props. Let's really juice this one up here. Antonio Gibson rushing yards. Let's grab over 64.5, like that one. We're already up to 3-1. And we're rushing out. We're not getting any rushing attempts on this one. So we got to wait for that one to come out later in the week, but play like over 14.5 rushing attempts. You'll probably have like 5.5 to 1 on your money just in on Antonio Gibson this week.
I love the Commanders team total over as well. So you add that in there comfortably. It supports it too. It's correlated, right? Not perfectly, but obviously points scored is going to help feed that naturally. So no problem with that at all. Connor, any thoughts on Gibson here?
No, I mean, the matchup is so good, and the Lions continue to not restore the roar, which makes me very happy after all of the, off-season hype from, multiple accounts here on in Twitter. So I'm pretty happy to kind of watch them fail. Not going to lie.
Yeah. Never understood that. Smart people chasing the 6.5, even after it gets steamed through the 5.5, and crazy. So yeah, it's a mess there. Lots of points in this one. So no problem with the Gibson based same game parlay. Like what we're doing here. I got a couple. These aren't one bet's not available that I want to talk about that I am going to chase if it's in a range. We'll talk about that. The other is Michael Pittman. We had a question here in the chat too. Pittman thoughts. I like Pittman quite a bit. His prop opened up at 64.5 yards against Jacksonville, way too low based off of how he was used last year and used in week 1 and all this team we thought coming in the preseason. Some quad issues that are maybe limiting him. Frank Reich, just before we came on, said he's not worried about Pittman at all. Obviously concerned about re-aggravating an injury that popped up out of nowhere should give us a little bit of concern. 61.5 is a really low threshold, but Pat, I would love to get your thoughts on Pittman and obviously all that's going on with him so far this week.
See, I didn't see exactly like we're kind of getting everything rolling out right now, whether or not players are going to go or not.
Yep.
Like KJ Hamler looks like it's more and more likely that he's not playing, which is even better news for Albert O and his overs. We take one guy out of the passing game. Van Jefferson isn't playing. So, Barbara Stanwyck's his overs. He's going to be fine as well. And then just seeing what's coming out about Michael Pittman, it's just like, well, he's not practicing. He might play. Like, it doesn't seem to be anything definitive about him. I bet you he does. Oh no! See, now I'm pulling up stuff. I thought that was you talking. It wasn't even you. So yeah, here's the.
I thought you were going to break news. I thought we had some.
No. I thought that was you talking back to me. I was like, oh, what are you saying? Well, what's this breaking news? It sounds great, but no, stupid auto pop-ups. Get out of my life, auto ads. So here's the actual quote. He's optimistic that Pittman will be fine. That's not definitive in any kind of way that he's going to play.
No.
Now, if he plays, I love the over. I'm with you, but we could. When you're dealing with an injury situation, if we don't get more concrete evidence on Saturday that he's definitely going to play, like this could be a situation where they run him out here. He plays one snap, he's out of the game. Correct.
So that's the concern too. And then I think in that scenario, we should be, and you can tell me if you guys think I'm wrong, hammering Jags getting 4.5 in a spot where the secondary receivers there are a problem. Or maybe that's a Jonathan Taylor proper. Like, I don't know. It just changes the dynamic when you looked at how the distribution of pass catchers were used last week. It's really Pittman and the receiver, the running backs, and that's it. So, Connor, any thoughts on, I guess, Pittman, the Colts, and the dynamics of this game?
Something I've been eyeing actually all week would be like Matt Ryan unders, because Pittman it's basically just Pittman, and now Alec Pierce is out too. So who's gonna get him to 236 passes?
Ashton Dalton again.
Ashton Doolin.
They've taken a lot of these off the board, so you can't even play
right
many of the receiving props for any of the Colts receivers right now. It's funny that they've left Pittman on as the only guy that you can bet on at the 61.5. But
oh man,
yeah, like with Pierce being out, Doolin does become interesting. Pittman becomes interesting. I don't have much on Mo Alley Cox, but I would take a look at the Naheem Hines over, whatever that ends up being. Even if Michael Pittman plays, just feels like that is someone who might slide in as not necessarily, he's not a receiver, he's a running back, but just be on the field so much that he might end up with like 4, 5, 6 targets in this game. Probably good for like over 20 yards receiving. And I just don't feel like his number is going to be around there.
If my wife ever leaves me, part of the reason is because I continue to bet too many running back receiving overs, and I'm trying to stay away. I feel like it's a leak in my game. I'm with you. I think it's sound advice. I think Javonte Williams receiving overs this week are sound plays based off of the number, our projections. There are a few of them. I thought Jerick McKinnon was very sound last night as well.
You in the world. You know how I won all my money besides Mike Williams? You know, the only other thing that I bet on the Thursday night football game besides Chargers plus 4.5, Jerick McKinnon under 17.5 receiving yards. Do you know why? I was golfing all day. I get home and I just open up Twitter. Everyone's favorite prop, Jerick overs. There's zero chance that's happening.
We could have middled. I had 14.5. It could have worked, but yeah, no, negative. I opened up and missed a couple of plays trying to get the game on my television because for some reason the Fire Stick didn't want to work. One reception for -5 yards, and I'm like, son of a bitch, we're dead right out of the water. So yeah,
literally got popped for a screen in the backfield like the first drive or second drive. I was like, oh, that's dead. Like you just at that point, it's over. Like you know that prop's dead.
No shot. So yeah, it's I get the Heinz thought. And I just personally, it's somewhere, I'll stay with my receivers at 95 yards, but I cannot touch these running backs in the high teens and the 20s anymore.
I have Nyheim Hines projected for 26 receiving yards in this game. 3 catches on 4.5 targets. And if you start taking away more of their receivers, so these guys are gimped up a bit, I feel like that number only goes up.
Yeah, it's a mess. The other one I want to talk about is Jamar Chase, longest reception. Jamar Chase, we don't have any props because I think they're still waiting on the T. Higgins situation. Looks like he's going to play. The big plays that we get from Jamar Chase week in and week out. Joe Burrow was outstanding against man coverage last season. The Cowboys play a significant amount of man coverage. Trayvon Diggs, for all of the noteworthy things that we saw from him last year, again, when you pick off 11 passes, break up 10 more, it tends to get a lot of attention. Though last year, his 11.2 yards per target was much higher than his 8.6 yards per target as a rookie. He takes chances. He gives up big plays. And I think in this spot where even though I think the game's probably a little bit closer, kind of like Pat thinks, I think 7.5 is probably a little bit too much. I think that we're going to see some big plays, splash plays against man coverage and Jamar Chase. It's probably going to open, I would say probably 27.5, 28 yards for his longest reception based off of what we've seen in the last few for him. I have no problem there. I think we see a splash play of 30 plus, which I think he's done in like 11 of 18 games or something like that. Like he's had like 11 of 18, like over 35 or 40 yards. He's had some big plays. So Jamar Chase, when that comes out, if it's under 30, I'm going to chase his longest reception. Again, not out there currently, but want to have you just kind of put that on your radar to look, get your guys' thoughts.
I love that because if Diggs ends up on him in this game, that is the perfect situation because Diggs is going to sell out for the interception on one of these like bubble screens. Chase is going to catch it and just run down the sidelines.
Yeah, it's a great matchup for it. Again, man heavy in relation to the rest of the league, and they kind of ran that back last week too. So thoughts there, Connor?
No, I like it. I mean, Diggs gets so much hype around being a playmaker, which he is, but he's just like really not good in coverage at all. His coverage grades are horrible and he gets burned all the time. So, I think this would be a great spot for some Jamar Chase overs, maybe just in general too. If Higgins plays, they'll get some, maybe in like the low 70s, something like that. I think that's possible. So some overs there are a good look.
Let's look at a couple Thrive props real quick, Connor, before we get to questions. I'm not sure if you've opened or taken a look at this week's slate. They're doing it again. They have a layup, which again, like they're baiting you into the spot because it's not rewarding you any points, but they have David Montgomery on Sunday nights, 1.5 total touchdowns for David Montgomery. I think I'm going to lean under, even though it's not getting you a lot of points. Don't feel really good about David Montgomery finding the end zone twice. Is there anything that jumped out to you on this week's Thrive contests?
I mean, that's just hilarious because the Bears team total right now is like 15.5. So they're saying that they're scoring basically implied to score 2 touchdowns here, like total, and you're banking on Montgomery scoring both of them. So I like the under there in that one. A few other ones that are off market compared to domestic sports books that I don't necessarily like love in general, but I think that are good plays based on what we're seeing from a more efficient market. Aaron Jones over 70.5 rushing and receiving yards combined. A little bit of squeaky wheel narrative there, getting the ball. I think that's in like the mid to high 80s in most books. Joe Mixon over 62.5 rushing yards here, against Dallas, 7.5 point favorites. I think that he should have his way, or at least get enough volume to have his way. Amari Cooper, I know fishy, took an under touchdown prop, half touchdown. You can get like pretty close to even money here on Amari Cooper under. And one more, Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
Now we just got a notification that they were not in the open part of portion of Saints practice. So I don't know if he's going to play, to be honest. We took some Kamara unders as well. They signed Latavius Murray early in the week to the practice squad. If he gets elevated, I think there's a chance that Kamara probably sits here, but 68 total rushing yards, I think is a good look towards the under if he does somehow play, because that is way, way too high.
Some of my favorites there too. So again, Thrive Fantasy in the App Store. Use promo code PropDrop, and you can get a 100% instant first deposit match up to $250. Join that contest. It is not going to fill. So let's help get it closer. We'll maybe continue to help the folks over there adjust. But again, like if you beat us in week 1, let us know. Again, DM at 4for4bets on Twitter, and we will help you get a free ticket here for week 2. Jump into some of the questions here. First of all, we love you too, but no love for Pat.
Yeah, come on.
Why? People saying they don't like me?
Says love you, Connor. Love you, Noonan. Smiley face. So no love for Pat?
I mean, that's shocking. I assume it's just someone who's very jealous of my good looks.
I think that's probably it.
It may also be a porn bot, so I don't know. There's 50-50 chance.
Friend of the show, Steve Boynton, hanging out with us. Do we think Michael Thomas usage was real in week 1? I know everyone was down on him coming into the season. Any thoughts there, Pat, on Michael Thomas in the Saints passing game?
I would expect to see more from Michael Thomas. They were talking about a snap count for Michael Thomas in week 1. He didn't have as much action, at least early on, than we expected. But when it kind of came to crunch time and they needed to score points, what was their play? Let's just throw it to Michael Thomas because he's awesome. And especially if Kamara is going to be banged up, I think we see more of him. That Taysom Hill prop you talked about becomes a lot more intriguing if Kamara is banged up too.
Yep. Interesting to watch for. Adam wants to know, haven't watched the whole show. First of all, Adam, fix that.
Smash the like, pal.
Yeah, come on. You're here now. Comments, likes, subscribe. You get that notification every Friday in this spot, 2 p.m. Eastern. Adam, come on. Wants to know the thoughts on Sterling Shepard with Tony questionable, Robinson out. Thoughts on 41.5 receiving yards. Those are not receiving yards. Receiving yards, I would take the under based off of the verbiage. But anyone have thoughts on Sterling Shepard here?
No Giants.
Yeah,
Barkley
that's
or nothing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Said it well.
SC, maybe you already said it and I missed it. Do you like Mariota over 31.5 pass attempts? It looks like the 30.5s are gone. Yeah, probably seems a little high again, based off of, talking through with Pat too. Pat's numbers are kind of on that spot. We don't have it as a massive bettable edge anyway, especially when we get up to the 31 spot. So probably a stay away for me, unfortunately, if you did not catch the 30.5s. Kind of a wait and see. I think, again, last week he went over it. I think we're at like 33 in our projections. So again, not a massable bettable edge. I think you guys probably feel the same based off of what we talked about earlier. Pittman thoughts we got to. Looks like Boynton's with Pat here. Likes the Jets plus 6.5. Steve, you can slide into the DMs if you want to get some juice-free Jets action, peer-to-peer, coming to you soon. But that's about it. Oh, looks like we got a fantasy question. Cash, what show are you watching? This is props. Would you trade Julio and Kadarius for D-Hop and Mooney? Listen, ask Daigle those questions. T-Map, 4for4. They can handle all that stuff for you. I'm not getting into your trade questions. Know where you're at. Prop drop. We're here for fantasy. Not for fantasy. We're here for props, man. Come on. That's about it. I don't know if there's anything else good here for you. So that's it. Again, prop drop every week. Go look at the Thursday show, our game previews. 9 bets in there for you, Connor, Dale, and I, looking at games, sides and totals, everything like that. Pat, where can everyone find you and all your stuff this week?
Pat Mayo Experience. Follow me at the PME on Twitter. And, I got a ton of stuff going on. Most of it not good and not helpful, but some of it is. So you have to parse through it all to get to the good stuff.
Love it. It's all good. So check it out. Again, smash the like button on all the PME, Pat Mayo Experience, Mayo Media Network, all the good stuff there. Connor, any other work coming from you this week? Continue to update the prop article as new stuff drops, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I have a list of like 5 or 6 more props I want to bet, but the numbers just aren't out yet. So, hop in the Discord, get the notifications on those. I'll be updating my article as well as maybe some betting threads. Now that I have a little more energy, not in Vegas, maybe do some betting threads to the content that everyone wants, right? That's exactly what people are looking forward to. So we'll stay tuned. We'll see.
I was going to let us go before producer Sal's pick of the week. This is our prop tool. It's tied to our projections, which have been the best in the industry for over a decade. Available part of our betting sub at 4for4. Betting sub secures everything on the site, everything you're going to need to be profitable this season: articles, tools, rankings, DFS, subscriber-only Discord, like Connor is talking about, covering multiple sports: MMA, NBA, college football, soccer. Ton of new betting resources that we've added this year. So 4for4.com/plans for the betting sub. And real quick, let's get a peek at producer Sal's prop bet of the week. It's a curveball from Sal, changing the music up a little bit. Son of a bitch, Sal. We just talked about this. Javonte Williams, over 22.5 receiving yards. I mean, I can't pat any thoughts on Javonte. Massive target share last week.
I have him so far under. I have him like 20 yards under this number.
You have him at 2.5 receiving yards?
No. What's your projection?
I'm sorry. Our yeah, we're 38.5.
Yeah, I have 16.5.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. See, this is it, right? The variance in these are massive. So, Connor, I think I know your thoughts from just a how to approach these bets standpoint, but any thoughts specifically on Javonte?
Yeah, I think it was our projections a little bit of an overreaction to last week. I don't know. I just don't really think that he's going to be as involved. But the coaching staff did say we really like to get our running backs involved in the passing game. So I don't know. I'm kind of in a wait and see approach here, but I don't like fading producer Sal because his picks have been on fire, dating back to last season. So, fade at your own risk.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, this isn't a fade spot for me. It's just more of a no play because clearly your guys' projections are really buying into what happened last week with the target share. Mine are doing the opposite of that, coming in at, I think I have him at like 3 targets or something. So the reality is probably somewhere in the middle. And when you have a talent like that, if all of a sudden he has 5 targets, realistically with this number, I mean, that could just be 1 catch for Javonte Williams because he's so good. Makes one guy miss, he's down the field. So that's why I don't love running back. I mean, you talk about the running back overs in terms of receiving yards, Ryan. That's why I don't love the unders at the same time either. I'd rather play them as overs unless it's Jerick McKinnon and the world is on the over than just automatically bet the under. But for a situation like this, I could be so wrong with how I'm projecting it. And I realize that I wouldn't go all in on that.
Yeah. Sound process. As you can see, player prop tool, very helpful, tied to our projections. You can search by state, sportsbook stat that you want to display. You just type in the player like Sal did here, typing in Javonte Williams. Again, this is a tool for us as part of our betting subscription, 4for4.com/plans to access it. We think it is one of the best out there on the site, so feel pretty good about that. Sal, thank you. I know last year was very profitable for Sal. I would say, probably a 65-75% hit rate. And I think 50% of them were basically Cordero Patterson overs. So
yeah,
this is
Cordero Patterson and Juice Check. Those were the two. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Juice Check always popping in the 4for4 projections. So take that with a grain of salt as you use that. So, all right, we'll wrap it up here with that. For Connor and Pat, I'm Ryan. We'll see you all next week. Thanks, everybody.